Hello and welcome. In today's video, we are going to be talking about nationalism and revolutions, but this is just the first part, so mostly we're just going to be focusing on the revolutions, the political revolutions of the period from 1750 to 1900. So, where are we beginning? We're beginning with this idea that discontent with monarchies and imperial rule encouraged the development of systems of government and various ideologies, including democracy and 19th century liberalism, which I'm going to define for you in a second. But first, I want you to think about the first phrase of that statement. Discontent with monarchies and imperial rule. Where is that discontent coming from? A lot of that discontent is obviously going to be coming from the Enlightenment. Other aspects of this discontent were settled within discontent and dissatisfaction with mercantilist policies and also with the system of enslavement. So, as promised, I said I would define this idea of 19th century liberalism for you. And here you go. It's the belief in small government, individual freedoms, and the idea that the people should participate in the government. So a lot of this is going to spur from the ideas of John Locke for the most part. Okay, so all of this imperial discontent ends up in the events of colonial subjects in the Americas, leading a series of rebellions inspired by democratic ideas. These colonial subjects who rebel are located in North America, with whom we're quite familiar, in Haiti, and in Latin America. So we are going to talk about each of these. The first revolution that we're going to talk about is the first to come chronologically and also the one that you are most familiar with, the American Revolution. And what we have to know is that the American Revolution and its successful establishment of a republic known as the United States was a model and inspiration for the number of revolutions that followed. So what causes the American Revolution? I think the first thing we need to establish is that North American colonists in the British colonies felt that they were British citizens. They were just living kind of somewhere far away. So they felt that they were or should be guaranteed the rights of British citizens. And one of those rights is to have representatives in Parliament. And they had kind of been okay not having representatives in Parliament because for the most part, the British government had left the colonies alone. So in the American colonies, we see a certain level of self-government develop. A really good example of that is the Virginia House of Burgesses, which Thomas Jefferson had been a part of, and other colonial assemblies. So they were left alone, they didn't pay a lot in taxes, they weren't really bothered, and so they were okay being ignored. In fact, they had a name for this policy. It was called salutary neglect. But after Britain spends way too much money winning the 7 Years' War, salutary neglect is over. And that's when we get all of those laws that you learn about in American history class, like the Stamp Act, the Sugar Act, the Tea Act, the Townshend Acts. And so now the American colonists have a problem, and that problem is taxation without representation. They're inspired by the writings of British and French Enlightenment thinkers that had been transmitted across the Atlantic, and so they decide that they are actually going to demand representation, and they want those representatives in Parliament. Those petitions are ignored or rebuffed or even insulted by King George, and so we get the famous Declaration of Independence, in which Thomas Jefferson, its primary author, quotes, in many ways he plagiarizes John Locke in his 2 treatises on government when he says that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, right? Rights that cannot be taken from us. Sounds like natural rights from the Enlightenment to me. And those natural rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I will not be discussing the course of the Revolutionary War with you here, but rather what I want you to focus on is the idea that natural rights and growing conversations about those rights are the key part of the revolution, However, many historians claim that it's not actually very revolutionary. Some have taken to calling it the War for Independence. And they call it that because if you think about what a revolution is, you would think about a society being turned on its head. And so in the American Revolution, what happens is the people who are in power in the colonies become the people who are in power in the new nation. And so there isn't much revolutionary about it if you take out the fact that those Enlightenment ideas are put into place in the creation of our republic. The next revolution, and arguably the most revolutionary, the most significant, the most impactful, is the one that you probably haven't really heard of, and that is the Haitian Revolution. Haitian Revolution takes place from 1791 until 1804. So it is a pretty lengthy experience, and anytime that we have a lengthy war for independence or revolution, things are going to get messy. So where are we? We are in Haiti. What is today Haiti, which is the other half of the Dominican Republic on the island of Hispaniola. At the time, it was the most wealthy, the most lucrative colony in the French Empire of Saint-Domingue. And they made sugar, full of sugar plantations. And so because they're full of sugar plantations, they are also full of enslaved Africans. And these enslaved Africans are no longer going to tolerate the abuses of the system of slavery and sugar plantations. So there is a revolution led by enslaved Africans. And it is the only successful slave revolt in history. It is also the first, and successfully in terms of like it ends slavery there. And it also leads to the establishment of the first majority Black state in the Western Hemisphere, the state of Haiti. So what's going on? It turns out that in the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen, written by the Marquis de Lafayette, that the statement is used, all men are born free and remain free and equal in rights. If you are an enslaved person, this seems very hypocritical to you. And so we see the creation of this revolution. And it is a very violent revolution, particularly because the French are engulfed not only in trying to win back their most lucrative colony, but also because they are involved in several wars and competitions with other European states that make them particularly harsh. So one of the most commonly seen images of the Haitian Revolution is this one, which really captures a few things about the Haitian Revolution. So first, it captures just how violent this revolution was. But second, as you can see, right, we have Black soldiers who are hanging this white soldier, and you can see in the background all of these other white soldiers that are being hanged. So it also captures, because this is made by a white artist, his name is Marcus Rainford. He is a British artist. And while he actually personally was sympathetic to the Haitian cause, images like this demonstrate how impactful Haiti's revolution is to the rest of the world, particularly the Western world. In North America, in the United States, they become very strict about the slave codes and how they treat enslaved Africans because of they don't want them to get any ideas like the enslaved people in Haiti, and so on and so forth. This is another image that Marcus Rainsford paints, and you can kind of see why, like on the other side, why exactly the Haitians were being so violent. Because there were massacres done by the French against Haitian revolutionaries and innocent people, and so this is kind of retaliation. But if you only saw this image, right, it definitely paints a like free Black people are dangerous vision for the world of the early 1800s that is going to further entrench slavery. I will actually be making a separate episode about the French Revolution as an example, one of the many examples of nationalism. But the next thing that we need to know is that the American Revolution, the Haitian Revolution, and the Latin American independence movements facilitated the emergence of independent states in the Americas. So we'll be talking about the Haitian Revolution and the Latin American independence movements to determine exactly how they created these independent states. So first up, let's go ahead and talk about the Haitian Revolution. Since the establishment of the French colony of Saint-Domingue on the island of Hispaniola, the other half of which is Santo Domingo, or today's Dominican Republic, the harsh sugar plantation system in the colony had already provoked a variety of resistance, both violent and nonviolent, from enslaved people doing the work on the sugar plantations. There also was a large mixed race population in the colony of Haiti, which further complicated the social structure and continued to plant the seeds of a revolution. So, over the course of the years 1791 to 1804, a violent revolution shakes the Caribbean and those countries surrounded by it, including the United States and, of course, France. So, in 1791 to 1792, the beginning of the revolution, we can start to see some important statements being made. So, let's go ahead and look at this one. Pause and read down the fruits of the revolutions and the Enlightenment being picked up by people of color in Haiti to justify what they are doing. Of course, the brutalities of slavery are the primary gauge here. And so, where are we? Where is Haiti? What are we doing? So we can get an idea of where Haiti is here. And the other thing that I want you to make sure that you know is who is leading this revolt, right? The only successful slave revolt in history, and the first time in the Western Hemisphere that there is going to be a Black-led state. That is a man named Toussaint Louverture. Toussaint Louverture is going to lead the forces of Haiti to their independence from France and to their independence from the tyranny of the sugar plantation and enslavement. And he is able to achieve that in 1804. Actually, he doesn't get to achieve it. He is murdered by the French in captivity, and his successor is Jacques Dessalines, and he will actually be the one who is able to secure the independence of Haiti. The independence of Haiti has massive ripple effects throughout the Atlantic basin. The imperial powers of Britain and France are definitely put on edge by this idea of a successful revolt by enslaved people. Another place that is very, very much put on edge is the new United States, right? With its history of enslavement and the debates surrounding slavery as an institution in the new United States, and to what extent that is aligned with the Constitution and the principles of the Declaration of Independence. So it fires back up the debate over slavery and also results in the slaveholding states in much more harsh treatment for enslaved people. Finally, we will discuss the Latin American revolutions. The revolution in France and the resulting Napoleonic Wars throw Europe into chaos. In the midst of this chaos, Spain's Latin American colonies take advantage of this moment to recognize that they actually are completely fed up with Spanish rule. And so, as you can see in this map, over the course of 15 to 20 years, the various colonies of Spain in the New World will break away, as well as Portugal's colony of Brazil. The most important who you need to be able to recognize associated with the Latin American revolutions is Simón Bolívar. Simón Bolívar is going to be the Creole architect of the independence movement. He is going to be its brightest light and its most ardent supporter. So he comes from a wealthy family, and he is convinced that Spain's treatment of its Latin American colonies is like slavery. And what's really driving that is that Simón Bolívar is not interested in Spain's mercantilist policies. In fact, he is arrested and put into kind of a prison in Jamaica by the British government and while he's there, he decides he's going to justify to the British why he should be released and why he's actually advocating for independence. This important document is called the Jamaica Letter. In the Jamaica Letter, right? He lays out the case that Spain has kept its Latin American colonies purposefully down, that Spain has prevented them from developing the skills and resources and infrastructure necessary to be successful on a world stage. They've kept them dependent. That's where he gets this idea of that they are just slaves to the Spanish. And this is speaking not only to the British in terms of their interest in economics and free trade, but also their competition with the Spanish in this area of the world. And Simón Bolívar has his work cut out for him, though. Simón Bolívar has not only this massive area to have to deal with, right? Look at all that space, but he also has to deal with the wide variety of obstacles in Latin America in terms of racism, in terms of slavery, in terms of just the geographic distance, the difference in the types of economies that were developed in these different colonies. And so he kind of brilliantly, like I called him the architect, right? He kind of brilliantly decides that rather than try and unite them in any other way, the way he's going to unite them is by calling them all Americanos, that they are American, they are unique, they are not Spanish, they are not Portuguese, they are not native. No longer are those things separate. In fact, those things are together, and only together as Americans, as Americanos, can they actually defeat Spain. And he preaches this essentially to people of mixed race, to other Creoles, to indigenous people, to enslaved people. And he is always hopeful that he will be able to overcome the racism and the enslavement and those systems that are in place in Latin America. Unfortunately, he dies before he's able to do all of that, but he does live to see the independence of Latin America and the ripple effects that then will continue to have economically and politically throughout the course of the 19th and 20th centuries, which of course we will get to later in the year. Finally, what we need to discuss is this idea that there are these revolutionary documents, right? I talked about the Jamaica letter. The other one is the Declaration of Independence. And then we're going to look at some more together, like the French Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen, and also how those documents influence documents 200 years into the future. And so that's really what's the important takeaway in this topic, is just how impactful these revolutions are.